Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're at, whatever time zone you're in. I am back with Tamara Splitter. She was a bodybuilder, she was a triathlete, and she's now a pure cyclist. And man, is she smart! She's going to tell us some things today about metabolism. And for the sake of time, I'll go ahead and get started. But make sure you watch this video to the end because we're going to be talking about empty stomach rides, Pop Tarts, ideal breakfast that you can have before a long ride, and even apple cider vinegar and how it impacts your metabolism. So, today we're going to be talking about your metabolism. And so, first question for Tamara, can you tell us what metabolic rate has to do and how important it is in cycling performance?
Sure. Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me back again. Your metabolic rate is the amount of energy that your body is using over a period of time, plain and simple. So most of us know that to be calories, how many calories you're burning in a certain period of time.
Hmm.
Uh, so it's a bunch of chemical processes that help you breathe, move, repair the muscles. Keeping it balanced is called homeostasis.
Interesting. And so you mentioned energy. So
Mhm.
for us to have more energy, then we have to make sure we keep everything in check, right?
We absolutely do. So, with athletic performance, specifically cycling, because this is a cycling channel,
Hmm.
it governs how your body converts that food into energy. But it also is the reason it's so important is because it's part of it. Not only is it the energy, it's the repair and everything else that goes along with that. It's the whole recovery process.
So our metabolism interacts with the athletic performance,
Absolutely.
and it's actually repairing muscle as we're in the process of, say, a 100-mile ride sometimes.
No. So
No?
what's happening when you're in the 100-mile ride is you're ripping up the muscles.
Okay.
And so the calories that you're consuming prior to the ride, during the ride, those are all factors in your metabolism. Your
Oh,
body is very smart and it adjusts to that, just like the thermostat in your house. You know, if you have a set point at 68 degrees, it's only going to kick on at 68 degrees.
right.
So whole metabolic process when you're actually training is what you're eating before and during your training. And then after the training happens, the muscles are ripped apart, the repair process starts. And that's where metabolism kicks in again. So cyclists, athletes unknowingly can lower their metabolism by doing too much and not eating enough.
Okay.
And
So
that's not what we want. We want a high metabolism.
I see. So our next question was, how does metabolism continue to play a role in after training? Because I've ridden with some people, and when I ask them, what they do after their training, they don't have a process. You know, what I mean, they just they'll go and they'll eat a lot of food, or they'll go pig out for lunch, or if we have an early morning ride. For me, I definitely have a process, and there are times, and maybe you can speak into this, where I don't eat for 3 hours after. Now I'll do a protein shake, but I may not eat for 3 hours because I was properly had the right nutrients and the right calories throughout the ride, even up until maybe an hour before the end. So, how does that metabolism continue to play a role after we finish our training sessions?
So what you do after nutritionally is equally as important as what you do before and during, because that is when you're replacing the lost glycogen stores, but also when you're putting the protein in the body to help in the repair process. So when you complete the actual activity, your body is going directly into repair mode at that point, and it's looking for the nutrients to help with that. So it plays a very important role in what you're taking in. Now, a lot of people will say, okay, well, I'm consuming all of those, carbohydrates and whatnot during that heavy training ride, but your body's using those. Typically, we're using very fast acting type carbohydrates during those rides. So your body's using those. When you come off of that ride, it's looking to replace everything and begin that healing process.
Okay, so do I need to be doing something other than a protein shake at the end of a long training session?
Definitely. Yeah, you need to be putting the carbs back in.
Okay, some more carbs. Okay. Well, that's good. I'll make sure that because I usually 30 minutes, when I'm 30 minutes, know that I'm going to be finished. A lot of times I'll do that extra carb gel. Is that sufficient, or do I need something even after I quit?
So during your ride is when you want the fast acting carbs like the
Right.
gels, if you choose to use
Ah,
those, the simple carbs, the sugars,
yeah.
the very absorbing.
Hmm.
After your ride, you want to concentrate on complex carbs, starchy carbs, sweet
Gotcha.
potatoes, pasta, rice, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Oatmeal.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's good. That's good info. Now, what factors influence metabolism in athletes?
What factors influence in athletes?
Yeah.
Age is a huge factor.
Okay.
Because as we grow older, it tends to slow, metabolism tends to slow down.
All right.
Gender is a factor. Men usually typically have more muscle mass than women,
Okay.
and genetics plays a factor as well.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. And what are some common metabolic challenges you see with athletes?
Overtraining syndrome. They don't realize when they're overtraining. And so all the signs are there. Times tend to get slower. They tend to be more fatigued. They tend to have more aches and pains. They don't sleep as well. All of those things. And I know Garmin likes to, scream at us, you're due for a rest day, but you really need to start paying attention to what your body is telling it. So I do see overtraining. And failure to consume a well-balanced diet is another very common thing.
Okay. I know you and I talked about off recording about how Garmin would recommend interval training for me, and then I just didn't feel it. I just felt sore, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to do a zone two ride and just, not do 2 hours. I'm going to do an hour, and just felt so much better.
Yep.
So, what about do athletes have different nutritional needs that other, people who are not athletes have, and then how does that affect metabolism?
Oh, definitely. I mean, athletes require much more calories than non-athletes, and it directly impacts their metabolism by having an effect on the glycogen storage.
Okay, because I know I think I do 2,300 calories a day, but now when I'm on the bike, like on a Saturday when I do my long ride, there's been some Saturdays where I've burned 4,000 calories plus, and I
Those are estimates, though. You have to appreciate the fact that those are very much estimates. So the amount of calories you burn is so dependent on how much muscle mass you have, what and what you're eating. So remember, the higher metabolism you have, the more calories you get to eat.
I got you. Okay. Well, that's good to know. What about weight? A lot of people talk about, weight for a cyclist. They'll spend thousands of dollars to decrease the weight on their bikes. Um, weight is a big deal, especially if you ride where me and Jason ride. We ride up in the mountains, and
Mhm.
it's not uncommon for us to do 6,000 feet of elevation gain on a Saturday ride. So what? Weight's common, of course, for us. What does weight loss? How does that affect our metabolism?
Well, that's a really loaded question for me because I could go on and on for hours. So yes, you're right. Most cyclists do very much focus on weight, on what the scale says. And unfortunately, what they do is they will restrict calories and do more activity in order for the scale to drop. What ends up happening is that they actually lower their metabolism. So like I talked about that thermostat in your house,
Yeah,
they went from having it at a set point of 68, maybe down to 65.
right.
So now the body is an extremely smart machine. And when you start giving it less calories, it adapts. So it's all about homeostasis, it's all about adapting. And so then the goals don't get met. And so then they most further restrict calories and do more activity in hopes that that will do the trick. And it works for a very short amount of time and then it stops again. And then oftentimes what will happen is they'll find themselves gaining weight. So rather than focusing on actual weight loss, they should be focusing on fat loss. And honestly, it comes from the choices of food that you make. A calorie is not a calorie. 100 calories from rice is not the same as 100 calories from gummy bears. It just isn't.
Right. So when you mention fat loss, what are some pragmatic ways to lose fat?
Well, it's in the food choices that you make. So I always talk to people about 80 to 90% of their diet should be single ingredient, non-processed foods. So when you think about proteins, basically think about, the outside of the grocery store and avoid everything in the middle. So, you've got your fruits and your veggies and your
Right.
meat and your
Yeah.
dairy and, that kind of thing. That should be the
Yeah,
majority
the
of your shopping.
outside edges. Yeah, you're right. I never thought
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
And so basically, what I try to educate people on is your food choices for the most part
Yeah.
should be single ingredient foods without a label. Now, there are some things that have a label, like rice or oats. The only ingredient in there is rice or oats.
Right. Oh, that's good. That's good.
It's got, five, six different ingredients and you can't pronounce half of them, you should probably avoid it.
That's right. So that's brings up our Pop-Tart
Oh,
discussion.
Pop-Tarts.
Jason is he jokes with me, and you'll hear on some of our videos, we're actually going to get to ride outside today. I think it's going to be my first or second ride outside. It's January the 29th, and the weather's been so bad we haven't been able to ride outside. But he's always joking about, a Pop Tart. So speak into that. I know there's more than one ingredient in a Pop Tart, so that's probably not the best thing to put into your body before you go on a high performance ride, is it?
No. So, I mean, not only is it processed, but it's got a lot of simple sugars in it. So, the way that that happens is your body burns those off extremely quickly, right? So, your body burns off carbohydrates first and foremost, and then it burns protein, and then it burns fat in that order. So, we've got simple carbs, we've got complex carbs. Simple carbs are your sugary carbs, your processed stuff, and then your complex carbs are your single ingredients, things like oatmeal, rice, yams, sweet potato, that kind of thing. And so when you're topping up your glycogen stores, you want those slower burning carbohydrates when you're starting off on your ride. So you typically want to get that in ideally about 2 hours before you go out.
And
Then,
you and I talked about an empty stomach ride because, I don't like eat unless I'm going to do 100 miler. I normally won't eat breakfast at all.
yeah.
I may drink a protein shake, but I've got carb drinks and I've got carb gels. I might eat a banana within the first 30 minutes of the ride. But speak into that. And I've heard a lot of the pros do the same thing. Even on race day, they won't eat a large breakfast. They'll eat, just a very small breakfast, but then they will start eating within 30 minutes to an hour of getting on the bike. Speak into that for me.
So each individual is very, very different, right? And so there's a lot of people that can't tolerate that food in. So we typically like to put that food in 2 to 3 hours before a ride.
Right.
So, at that point, you shouldn't be feeling a heavy stomach. You should be feeling, good and like you've digested that food by that point. And then you're topping up those glycogen stores. Fasted is a thing. I mean, in bodybuilding, we designed that. We did that back
Right.
in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Like we know all about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is if you're going to do a fasted ride, I recommend that be something like if you're going to do a zone 2 ride or an hour long kind of a ride that you don't have to be exerting like top performance in like a heavy training day,
All
by
right.
all means, go ahead. The theory is that you're tapping into your fat storage more on a fasted ride. Are you? Yeah, a little bit. Is it going to make that huge of a difference? Not really.
Right.
Um, so you have to look at how your own performance is. I mean, I know people that can get away with that, but I also know that those same people, if I say to them, "Hey, try this out," get some food in you. And I have to use your friend Greg as an example because he gets up very early in the morning and he used to do his rides fasted. And I said to him, I really want to change this up. And in that first week, he was mind blown at the performance that he had. So it does make a difference.
I will try that. Next time we do a climbing ride, we start out, literally, we start out in a 2,400 feet climb that's in about 7 to 8 miles. I mean, it's a good steady, 5 to 7, 8%. And I will try that next time I do that climb ride. What about ideal breakfast? Any quick tips on an ideal breakfast?
Before you go out,
Yes.
yeah, you don't need protein then. You just need the carbs. And I'm all for something like oatmeal or grits or cream of wheat or something like that. Yeah, you
Yeah.
could add some, you want to slow down the burning in that, you can add some fats to that. You can add some ground flax or some, slivered almonds or something like that. And that's really going to hold you over until, it's time to start eating on the ride. And that's when you want to start putting the simple carbs in on your ride. You want to be
Perfect.
putting carbohydrate powders, the bananas, that kind of thing.
Okay. And at the first video, we mentioned apple cider vinegar. I know it affects metabolism. I see it as a supplement. What are your thoughts?
I take it every day. I take about 1.5 tablespoons every single morning in my concoction that I take. It does lower blood sugar levels.
Okay.
And it may, and that I have to use that loosely, it may help in achieving weight loss. There have been some studies that, found that people did lose more weight using it, but they can't attribute it directly to the apple cider vinegar. But it's extremely really good for your gut health. And gut health is a major thing that we should all be paying attention to.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, once I got my gut health, the energy that I have every day is
Oh
just
yeah.
off the
Yeah.
charts. I mean, I have to work out or I don't sleep as good. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's that's good. Well, thank you so much for your time. Hey, I'm looking forward to our next time. I'll give people a little teaser. We're going to talk about supplements on our
Mhm.
next video. So that'll be good. Some of the do's and don'ts. But thank you so much for your time, and I'll put your website in the description. But you have a
Yeah.
good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.